Would you like to know how I got my thoughts from sounding like Dobby from Harry Potter? Every Rob Schneider character in Adam Sandler's movies.
You can do it! You can do it! You can do it!
Ladies, gentlemen, letter friends, you've wandered into my neck of the woods. This is Partywolf Podcast. Have you ever done something and you're like, why the fuck did I do that when I knew better? Say you have a goal to lose weight, but you also enjoy Oreos. So you decide to buy you some Oreos at the store. You get home with these Oreos and you say, I've had a hard day. I deserve some Oreos. I'm going to eat some Oreos. The next thing you know, you've eaten an entire sleeve of Oreos. Not you specifically. This is my own story. Okay, so that was literally me. I ate a sleeve, almost a sleeve and a half of Oreos one day. Not a good decision, especially considering, at this point I had lost 25 pounds and I was kind of stuck at 25 pounds lost. I couldn't get really past that. I couldn't get to 30. And I ate a sleeve of Oreos. Why? And it's okay. I'm not saying, I shouldn't eat them. Whatever. A few here and there, no big deal. And most of the time, that's what I do. Most of the time, I'm pretty good about that stuff. But this one specific time just fucking was annoying because I'm just like, why did I eat so many Oreos? Because then 2 days later, I don't have any Oreos left. So, fuck. So that's essentially, kind of what self-sabotage is in the very, very basic sense. In the very basic sense, it is just, doing stuff, whether it's behavior, saying things, believing things, or not doing things, procrastination, stuff like that, that are directly out of line with goals that you've set or things that you want to do or someone you want to be or, how you want to, present yourself to the world, things like that. So for many different reasons, we do this stuff. Everyone's different. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone's struggle is different. For me personally, a lot of my self-sabotaging behavior came from not really enjoying my own company. To be fairly blunt, I hated myself. And it wasn't to the extreme point. It was just so much so that I didn't think that, good things really needed to happen to me. And I tried not to, I didn't wish bad things, but it was just like if bad things happen, it was like, whatever, that's my karma. I'll just deal with it. But I could recognize that, these behaviors weren't okay. And I wanted to figure out, what I could do about them to fix shit. Just to rewind a little bit, I manage a restaurant. It's what I do for a living, and that can often mean that I work a lot of hours. Not all the time, but it can happen. So dating while working long hours can be fairly difficult, but on top of that, I was also working towards a promotion that could come with a possible relocation. So one excuse that I gave myself was that I worked too much to be in a meaningful relationship. I just, decided, it can't happen. There's too much stuff going on. I got this and that, whatever, and stress and blah, 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 whatever. Was it impossible? No. Would it have been hard? Probably. But since it wasn't impossible, that led me to believe that there was another reason why maybe I didn't want to be in a meaningful relationship. And if it wasn't, just working too much, maybe it was something deeper. I ultimately came to the realization that I didn't believe that I deserved to be happy. And because of that, it was just easier to, focus on my career, focus on work and work hours, because focusing on that stuff would prevent me from making the same mistakes that I, felt bad for making in the past. One thing I found online is that, self-sabotage can actually come in the form of, being a workaholic. And as I started to make my mind up and focus on work and, essentially give up on, a love life, I started making peace with long hours and, just came naturally and easy, especially with the job. And, you just tell yourself, you're trying to do, you're trying to make the store better. You're trying to further your career for the future, blah, blah, blah. But then it started becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy and I was working more. And there was, a few weeks where there'd be days, I would just be there because there was nowhere else for me to be. I'd be doing stuff. I wouldn't just be, I'd be like, trying to, clean up or organize or, whatever. But it was just like, and I got nothing else to do. So I might as well do this or, I got nowhere else to be or no one else to be with. So like, I'll just do this shit until it's fucking great. And the thing is, it worked. I got a lot of stuff done. I am way closer to my professional goal than I ever thought I would be, as quick as I am. But during that time, there was a lot of bad thoughts and negative emotions. And that was the first time I've ever thought that I've come close, and maybe even had a panic attack. I'm not exactly sure, honestly. That's not something that I've ever really dealt with anxiety-wise, but that was probably the first or second time maybe that I've ever felt close to some sort of like, where I couldn't breathe. Like, I could still breathe, I walked outside, I was good, but like, closest I've ever been. So I did something very scary. And I finally asked myself why. Why don't I feel like I deserve to be happy? And at the same time, I was growing more and more uncomfortable with being alone. And not because I wasn't in a relationship with someone per se. It wasn't just that. Like, I hated living alone solely for the fact there wasn't another like person, human being, living creature, there, breathing, making noise, talking, living, experiencing life, like just near me, And so I would just always have like music playing, podcasts, just something just to fill the air, just because the thought of my own like thoughts, my own voice in my head with nothing else going on to give me like a task to do, I thought that would fucking crush me. And so I always had, something playing in the background in my apartment because silence was like nails on a chalkboard. I'm alone with my thoughts 24/7. And the silence is just like a fucking blooper reel of, regret and mistakes. And you should have did this and you shouldn't have did that. And you should have treated this person better. And you should have not had this person in your life and just all that shit, right? Came across this website with some interesting verbiage that I really like that I found after the fact, interestingly enough. How to stop self-sabotaging behavior, embrace your shadows. I'm just going to read this verbatim real quick. The shadows are the dark sides of you that you suppress. You know they're there, but you deny them because you're ashamed of them. You hide your shadows from people because you're afraid they'll find out your dark sides. The more you deny your shadows, the more they'll haunt you. Your shadows create shame, and it gives rise to self-sabotaging behaviors. But if you bring light to your shadows, the darkness fades away. So, I accidentally confronted my shadows. Kind of, sort of, on purpose, but accidentally. I wasn't really familiar super with like the verbiage or like that particular like explanation of it, but I knew there was something going on up here. So what I did was I separated my inner thoughts into two voices, more rather two sources. One source being the parts of me that I liked about myself, positive things, traits that I want to keep, characteristics that, if I was creating a creative player, I would go, that's stuff that I want to keep. Ooh, the other one, my shame, my lies to myself, to the world, my darkness, my shadow. Not every single thought or decision plays out like this. It's more if it's something I second guess myself for, or some sort of like knee-jerk reaction that I have, maybe emotionally, maybe something, makes me upset, something makes me excited, something maybe distracting me when it shouldn't be, or something, I'm not thinking about something when I should be thinking about it, just stuff like that. Especially if I feel like that statement is controversial to my own like personal belief system. Separating these two sources, if you want to kind of get a picture of what they sound like is, one of them sounds like Dobby from Harry Potter.
Dobby! Stop! Dobby! Dobby! Dobby, please! Dobby had to punish himself, sir.
And the other one sounds like every Rob Schneider character in the Adam Sandler movies.
You can do it! You can do it! You can do it! Get that old ass of yours in the end zone!
I would basically kind of think which voice, which source, had that thought, had that reaction. And if I could identify, the source of the thought or the reaction, then I could ask myself why. Why would that particular voice or that particular part of me respond the way it did? Why would I say that in that moment? Like, why would I think that in that moment? So then I would think, if it's a decision I made, I would say, is this the first time I've made a similar decision? Is it the first time I've had, this situation? Why did I go along with that? Why did I do that? Is it, can I retrace my steps to see like the first time it happened, why did I make that choice? And why did I continue to make that choice if it's the wrong one or the right one? And initially, my reasoning was that if I could figure out why I made a certain decision, especially if it was one that I wasn't proud of, if it was one that I regretted, if I could figure out why I made it, if I can like really, really dig deep and figure out exactly what motivated me to do something, and I didn't want to repeat it again, then I felt like that was the best chance to not do it again. It just what made the most sense to me. Because how many mistakes have you made and you're like, I don't even know why I did that. Like I just fucking did it, And it's like, that's not a good answer. That's not a good answer to give to someone that you care about, that cares about you. That's not a good answer to give yourself because it just doesn't make sense. I found my answer, but it took the freedom to allow myself to essentially, fall face first into my own conscience not without being afraid, but like pushing through the fear that like, oh shit, these answers might scare me. And in a weird way, like confronting those dark sides and acknowledging they're real and admitting it made them more real, which kind of backfired in this weird like back and forth kind of way. I found myself off and on in like this state of depressive pride because I was understanding myself and my motivations, but simultaneously and inadvertently highlighting negative emotions and feelings that I was having that I didn't know if I could deal with yet. So I decided to do the same thing, but with the things I liked about myself. I would have a moment where I would do something and I'd be like, man, I'm glad I did that. Like, I'm proud of myself for doing that. And I would think like, oh, like I used to do that when I was this age or that age. And it's like, wow, like I haven't done it in a while, but I think back to like remembering, like that's who you are as a person. Like you make choices that reflect who you want to be, and it makes you feel good about yourself, right? That sounds fucking cliche and like a no-brainer, but like fucking just I don't know, do it more. Say it out loud. Fucking say it out loud. Right here. I'm gonna just right there. Say it. Cool. Surprisingly, out of nowhere, like I started to appreciate just mundane moments in life more frequently. I also look forward to reflecting on my life more because there's more hope and there's less regret and there's more, happiness and there's less worry. And that makes it easier to listen to the part of myself that I like. I mean, doing stuff that makes you proud of yourself makes you want to do more things that will make you proud of yourself. And to do those things, you kind of have to be in tune with the part of you that will motivate you to do that stuff. So the more I had more positive thoughts, the more my behavior became more positive. And I would even notice myself, gravitate toward a bad habit before I did it. And then, be able to like, okay, like we already fucking dealt with that shit. We ain't doing that shit again. So one day this past year, I admitted to myself that I didn't like myself. And I even went so far to say that I wouldn't even call myself my own friend. One thing I had to confront about myself was the fact that, I didn't know who I was, but that was because I lied to myself a lot. Another thing is I realized that one of my biggest regrets in my adult life was putting other people first more often than I should have. I ended up putting a lot of trust in some people and I made some decisions, and those decisions cost me more grief in the situation I was in. And so I pretty much said, every man for himself. I'm going to take care of me. I didn't like hate everybody, or I didn't, hate anybody, but it was just like, if the world's going to give me shit when I try to help people, then fuck them. That's essentially how I felt. But that's an overcorrection of, just being more in control of your own actions. So I went from being, someone who was more selfless and honorable to being selfish and kind of a dick. And for a while, it worked out fine. I put me, myself, and I first, and shit was rolling. But that shit snowballs, and it's hard to just stop being someone that puts themselves first just abruptly. I just mean the level of connection you can have with people, I think is severely diminished, if you have a selfish heart. I even remember like a lot of times where like I wouldn't even really want to like connect with people or like, I don't know, like weird. And I'm an extrovert, like I'm fucking on camera on YouTube, but I've reconnected with that part of me that I loved. And, like just kind of ignited this desire in me to help people. You know, it's like I forgot the feeling. Like you feel better, like no matter what you're doing. Like if you're having like a shitty day or like, you're having a hard time, maybe appreciating life, or you just see all your shit that you deal with, but then you go like help somebody, or you like feed homeless people, give a homeless guy some money, or you give him some food because the feeling you get when you help someone, it just tears through like those negative emotions, at least in the moment. It's not like a permanent solution. It's something that will like help you kind of like build yourself up. Essentially what I did was, I would just do small things, throughout the days and weeks to just make myself feel better about myself. Not like pat on the back or like, hey, look at me, I did some shit, but like you just do something and then you go like, okay, like you did that. Like, so like you're capable of like doing good shit. So like just keep doing good shit. And I don't know, like sometimes you have to fucking remind yourself, and that's okay. Whatever gets you there, right? It wasn't that I made better choices. It's that I wanted to, right? Say someone's holding a knife over someone's finger and they say, if you let me cut this person's finger, I'll give you $100. And you go, fuck, God damn it, I want $100. I'm going to do it. Can I, how long do I have? How long do I have to, can I decide later? Right now? Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Don't cut his finger off. I don't want the $100. Don't cut his finger off. Thank you. Don't cut his finger off. Right? That's the good choice. That is a good choice. But you were fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like you're debating in that moment. But like, if it's the same situation and you go, of course not. Don't cut his finger. Like, why would you cut his finger? Don't cut his finger. I don't want $100. I don't need $100 for someone's finger. I don't need $100 for a fucking finger. Right? If that's your thought process, then that's even fucking better. Because now you want to make the right choice. You want to make the right choice for the right reason. Sorry. Decision making is very important when you talk about obviously self-sabotage, because it's all like the decisions you make. But for me, I didn't love myself for specific reasons. It was the decisions I made to get me where I was at. The only way out of that is to make better decisions. But you can't always just, boom, make a grand old big ass. Here's the thing. What do you do after you eat dinner? Right? You get a sweet tooth. Get up, you get some ice cream. What I did to lose 25 pounds this year, I lost 25 pounds in about 2 months, 2.5 months, something like that. I can't remember. But what I did was I essentially, I cut out a lot of dairy, cut out a lot of bread, and I pretty much ate mostly meat and fruit and some veggies here and there. But I ate a lot less junk food. And one of the ways I ate a lot less junk food was just by eating more fruit. It wasn't that I could not eat less junk food. If I buy Pop-Tarts and if I buy Oreos, I'm going to eat them. However, if I eat a handful of grapes, or like not a handful, I'm sorry, I'm eating a big ass bowl. Okay, if I eat a bowl of grapes and then I want to eat some cookies, I'm not eating a whole roll of Oreos after I eat a bowl of grapes. Because that's what happened that night. I ate a whole roll, is I didn't have my grapes. Or banana, apple, whatever. I would eat fruit and then I would have whatever fucking cake snack thing I wanted. I'm going to do that shit tonight. I got some grapes waiting and I'm going to have some carrot cake after that. Now, eventually it got to the point where there would be some nights, not every night, but some nights where like I just wouldn't want a Pop-Tart. I wouldn't want cake. I wouldn't want cookies. I wouldn't want a donut. I just eat some fruit and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to bed. I wake up the next morning, get on scale. Fuck yeah. And that like And it's not that I made the right decision for the right reason. It's not like I was like, I'm going to have self-control and I'm not going to eat the donut right now. No, fuck that shit. I want to eat the goddamn donut. But just sometimes, if you don't want to eat it, just don't eat it. And then you get on the scale the next day and I was just like, oh shit, nice. Right. And that little feeling, right? That fucking in your brain when you're just like, yeah, did it. That drives you to the next step. So yeah, so basically, just practicing, little things like that, little decisions, little choices that will help drive and influence like patterns. Because essentially, it's not that I can't eat cookies, right? It's not that you can't eat donuts if you want to lose weight. Is that you cannot have a pattern of eating donuts every night. You can't have a pattern of eating cookies every night, unless you're eating like 2 Oreos, right? Like, yeah, you could eat 2 Oreos every night. The serving size is, I think, 2 or 3 Oreos. It's like 140 calories. Don't ask me how I fucking know that. 140, I think, to 170, depending on the actual Oreo flavor. But you can have a couple Oreos every night and like no big deal. Or if you're like me, you can have like 4 Oreos every few nights. But like you can't have 4 Oreos every fucking night. So you just give yourself, these little choices, and they make the patterns, right? They make the patterns. So, I eat fruit and then I eat a little bit of sweets. So now there's days where I'll try to eat a bunch of sweets and I can't. Like I just fucking, I'll have it in my mouth and I'll just be like, can't. I'll eat like half a donut and I can't. We used to have donuts at work every Monday. I would eat at least 5 in an 8 to 10 hour shift. In an 8 to 10 hour shift, at least 5 donuts. It would be to the point people would come in and they would ask me how many donuts you had. Like they wouldn't ask me if I had donuts. They would ask me, how many donuts have you had? I like donuts, okay? But now, like, honestly, if someone brings donuts, like, I might have 2, maybe. And I usually, like, I'll have one, maybe a small one. And then my second one, I'll usually just get half and I'll split it with somebody or something because I just can't eat it all. And it's not, anything crazy. It's not some fucking diet pill. It's not some weird shit. I just ate more fruit. And if you're going to say fruit, sugar, bullshit, shut the fuck up. So that's essentially kind of how I started to trick myself to make better choices. It started with food. During that journey, I actually attribute most of my success dealing with my shadow self with weed. I started smoking this year. I'm not going to get into it a whole lot, but it essentially kind of helped me with some of the fear that I had with confronting those difficult questions. Not saying that I recommend it for anyone, consult your doctor, all that jazz, but that's just me. And I'm going to talk about it in another video, but not yet. I went to therapy as well. Not for a very long time, but I did go and I thought it was very helpful. I went actually after mulling over a lot of this stuff for weeks. Actually right around like when I said I had the panic attack, that's when it happened. Right around then I was just like, I gotta talk to somebody. I'm about to fucking lose my mind. So I was like, I gotta talk to somebody because just fucking wits in there. So got connected with therapy, through my job, which was cool. And I didn't go to like, learn, my dad didn't love me, so I am incapable of love. Like that's not, what I went. Like I know what I learned from my parents. I know the good habits I've gotten from them, and I know the bad habits I've gotten from them. I've known a lot of that for a while. But this year I really dug into it, and I discovered some crazy shit about myself. Yeah, but therapy wasn't some like, blah, blah, whatever. It was, really like someone to talk to, just like offload the information, process, bounce stuff off of. And it worked out. It worked out so good to the point where I like found myself like something would happen and I would think about, okay, I got to talk about this. Like this is bothering me. I'm thinking about this. And I would think about how I would explain it. Like, I'm like, okay, let me get my thoughts together. So I'm not just rambling. Let me get concise. Right. So I'll think of it. And in thinking of it, I'll process. And when you say something out loud to someone and like you go, oh, I know, I just figured it out. Like I did that in my brain. Like I would think about it I would think about me telling her like on the phone. And as I would explain something to her, and as I think about it, I would just like, oh shit, no, I think I got that. And it was great because then I'm like, okay, that's something I can handle. I can handle that. I've already like I've got the solution, or at least I've started working on a solution or workaround or whatever. Now I can move on to whatever else. So I think don't go and like your first session just be like not doing nothing. Look, I knew I had like a number of therapy sessions. I knew I had a set number. And so once it started, the minute that phone call started, I wanted to be ready and I wanted to know exactly what I wanted to talk about right then and there. And that's how every call was. And at the end of it, I mean, she told me, she said, she's like, oh, I don't think that like, you're like in crisis or like anything like that. She's like, you should be good. If you want to, reach out to me, feel free. But she's essentially like saying that, it seemed like I had it handled from then on. And not to say I'll never like use a therapist again. Like I probably will. But I say that to say like, if you are very specific with therapy, like I've talked to a few people about it and they were kind of like, yeah, like it'd be, I don't know how to like, just like, open up. And it's like, I get that, but like start thinking about it. Start thinking about explaining yourself to a therapist. Because that way, if you at least have like the words you want to say, the thing you want to talk about, then the only hurdle you have to get over is, who is this person? Can I trust them? Like maybe not literally think those things because that's overthinking, but like that's kind of like what your body is like doing, right? Like you may not be thinking that, but when your body is like not wanting to like talk to someone that like, is literally there like for that reason, it's like you're kind of just like, okay, who are you? Can I trust you? I don't know. So it's easy to lean into that, into like, a therapy session if you're just like, if you have written it down or whatever, just like, you just know like, okay, this is what I got. And this is what we're starting with. And then where we go from there is where we go from there. For me, before I started doing therapy, I actually started writing down goals on a calendar. Not a whole bunch of stuff, just little stuff here and there. And after talking to a therapist, the amount of things I would write on my board, there's a few on there now. The amount of things I would write on my board just like skyrocketed. And not that that means anything. It's just like a way to be more organized. And not to say that like, a therapist like needed to tell me to write stuff down, but I wanted to make that a practice. And it was like, I wasn't really thinking of stuff. I was just like, I'm going to write stuff down. I'm going to write goals or whatever. And I would write, whatever. And we'd be talking and she'd be like, oh, write that down. Like, that's something we can talk about next time, or that's something you can visit or something you can work at. And I'm like, okay. And I would find myself writing more stuff down, but then also like looking at the list more, which means I'm more likely to like do more of the stuff on the list because I'm always looking at it, right? And then I'm getting more stuff done, those little decisions. I'm doing this and that, starting a fucking whole podcast, and boom, here we are. So I'm actually going to leave the link to the service I used. They're not affiliated with the channel or sponsored, nothing like that. No way. I won't ever like fucking put anything in the thing other than stuff like this. Like this is important. So it'll be in the description to the BetterHelp app, website, or whatever that I used. Question for you. How can you live your truth if you believe a lie about yourself? Can you trust someone you hate? And can you love someone who you can't trust? I don't believe you can. And for me, those two people were one and the same. And I looked at them every time I looked in the mirror. Companies usually promote people who make good decisions, right? Because they believe they'll make good decisions for the company. If I subconsciously believe that I make bad decisions for the company, me, why would I promote me? But there's literally nobody else. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my decisions. Even looking at picking a therapist, I'm like, I don't know, do I pick male? Do I pick female? Black, white? Do I go with maybe like an Asian person? Maybe somebody just like completely different that like give me like an outside perspective. Like, what do I do? And then fucking, I don't know. Good thing that BetterHelp, I think just they pick one for you and then like you can approve it or deny it. And I just hit approve on the first one they showed because I was like, I'm not about to fucking. So I needed to build some self-rapport, and slowly more and more things I did made me feel good about myself. I didn't do anything grandiose right away. Just little stuff. Like the fucking fruit. And sometimes, yeah, I do something and I'm like, shit, I shouldn't have done that. And I ask myself, then why'd you do it? Or vice versa. Like, shit, I should have done that. Why didn't you? And so I think about it. And a few minutes later, I have at least some semblance of an answer. Appreciate your growth, but at the same time, the present. Because if you look too far ahead or if you look too far back, you can easily get distracted from the work you're doing right now. So yeah, appreciate the present, appreciate the moment, and live in it. Keep your eye on the future, but don't stare at it. If this inspired you, if this helped you, if this made you laugh, made you cry, made you think, hit subscribe. Please do. Share it with a friend or two. I'd appreciate it. Because at the end of the day, the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack.